Respect is not something you demand, it's something you attract. And today, I want to share with you 5 habits that silently steal your respect, your influence, and even your connection with God. Stop seeking validation. This is one of the greatest traps that steals respect, weakens your identity, and disconnects you from the power of God within you. When you constantly look outward, searching for people to tell you that you are good enough, valuable enough, beautiful enough, or strong enough, you place your worth in fragile hands. You hand over your dignity to people who are just as broken, just as limited, and just as uncertain as you are. Every time you crave someone's approval, you weaken your inner foundation. You give them the power to define you, and when they withhold validation, you crumble. But respect is never born out of dependency. It is born out of self-assurance, grounded in something greater than yourself. When you stop seeking validation, you begin to live from the truth that God already validated you before the world even knew your name. He breathed life into you, He placed value in you, He stamped His image upon your soul. That is the only validation that can never be taken away. The applause of people fades, the compliments disappear, the approval of society shifts like the wind, but the worth given by God is eternal. Respect begins to flow towards you when you no longer need people to tell you who you are because you know it within your own spirit. Think about it. People respect those who stand firm in their identity. We admire those who walk into a room without needing to be noticed. Yet everyone notices them. That kind of presence comes from inner wholeness, not external applause. The truth is, when you seek validation, people can sense it. They can see your insecurity. They can feel your dependence. And instead of respecting you, they subconsciously lose admiration. But when you no longer seek their approval, when you no longer beg for recognition, something shifts. You walk with quiet strength. You speak with conviction. You radiate confidence because you are no longer trying to perform for acceptance. Respect does not come to the one who chases it. It comes to the one who no longer needs it. So let go of the habit of seeking validation from the world. Stand in the validation that God already gave you. When you understand that your value is unshakable, you no longer live to impress others, you live to express truth. And people, whether they agree with you or not, will respect you because they cannot ignore the power of a person who no longer asks for permission to exist. Remove dishonesty, because every time you bend the truth, every time you exaggerate, every time you say something you do not fully mean, you weaken the bridge of respect that connects you with others. Dishonesty is not just about telling outright lies, it is about the little things too. It is about saying you will do something and not doing it. It is about hiding your true feelings behind a mask to please people. It is about manipulating the truth to make yourself look better. And while these things may seem small in the moment, they erode the deepest foundation of respect, trust. Without trust, no matter how talented, how powerful, or how spiritual you appear, people cannot truly respect you. People may laugh with you, they may listen to you, they may even admire your skills, but if they sense dishonesty, if they realize your words do not align with your actions, they cannot give you the kind of respect that lasts. Dishonesty makes people question who you really are. It creates doubt in their minds. They may nod in front of you, but behind you, their faith in you is gone. And once trust is broken, rebuilding it takes years, sometimes a lifetime. That is why dishonesty is such a silent destroyer of influence. When you live in truth, however, something powerful happens. Even if people do not like what you say, even if they disagree with you, they will respect you because they know you are real. Truth may make people uncomfortable, but it also makes them lean in because truth carries weight, truth carries authority. Truth cannot be faked, and when you embody it, people cannot help but notice the authenticity in you. Think of the leaders, the mentors, the voices you admire most deeply. It is not their ability to charm or their skill to manipulate that makes them great. It is their honesty. It is their courage to speak truth even when it is not popular, to stand firm even when culture pressures them to conform. That kind of honesty is magnetic. It draws respect without demanding it. Dishonesty, on the other hand, often comes from fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of failure. We lie because we think the truth is not enough. But every time we do, we shrink ourselves because a dishonest version of you can never be respected the same way as your authentic self. Respect comes when people know that your yes means yes and your no means no. It comes when people can rely on your words as much as they can rely on your character. To remove dishonesty is to align yourself with the nature of God Himself, because God is truth. And when you live in truth, you are no longer enslaved to people's opinions. You are no longer trapped in the exhausting cycle of trying to cover up lies with more lies. You walk freely, confidently, and people sense that freedom in you. They respect the person who is willing to stand in light, even when it is easier to hide in shadows. Respect cannot coexist with dishonesty. One will always cancel the other. So if you want to rise in influence, if you want to live a life where your words carry weight, then let truth saturate everything you say and do. Let your actions match your promises. Let your character speak louder than your lips. Because when you live in integrity, respect is not something you chase, it becomes something that follows you everywhere you go. Stop gossiping and criticizing, because nothing strips away respect faster than a tongue that speaks against others when they are not present. Gossip is not just harmless conversation. It is poison disguised as entertainment. It is a way of making yourself feel higher by pulling someone else lower. But the truth is, every time you speak negatively about someone, you reveal more about your own character than theirs. You show people that your heart carries judgment, envy, and insecurity. And deep down, people begin to wonder, if they talk this way about others, what do they say about me when I'm not around? Respect begins to crumble the moment your words lose honor. Criticism is similar. There is a difference between constructive feedback given in love and destructive criticism spoken out of ego. When you constantly criticize, complain, or tear others down, you show that your vision is limited, that your energy is small, and that you need to weaken others in order to feel strong. But people do not respect those who build themselves up by breaking others down. People respect those who lift others even while climbing themselves. Think of it this way. When you gossip or criticize, you are not only lowering someone else's reputation, you are lowering your own. People may laugh at your stories, they may nod at your complaints, but secretly they lose trust in your maturity. They recognize that a person who finds joy in tearing others cannot be truly secure in themselves. And without security, there can be no lasting respect. A respected person chooses silence over gossip, understanding over judgment, and encouragement over criticism. They see the flaws in others but do not weaponize them. They may notice mistakes, but they correct with dignity, not with cruelty. They know that how they speak about others says everything about who they are. And when people see that, they respond with admiration, because it takes strength to stay silent when everyone else is gossiping. It takes courage to build when everyone else is tearing down. There is also a spiritual principle here. When you gossip and criticize, you step out of alignment with God's nature. God does not gossip about you. He does not sit in heaven whispering your failures to angels. He covers, He restores, He uplifts. When you align yourself with His Spirit, you begin to see people differently. You start to notice not just their flaws, but their potential. You begin to realize that every word you speak either plants life or spreads death. Respect follows those who choose their words carefully, who speak life into rooms, who carry conversations that uplift instead of degrade. People are drawn to someone who can be trusted with their absence. Imagine being the person others know will never misuse their name, never distort their story, never dishonor them in their absence. That is how true respect is earned, because the one thing people long for is safety, and when your words provide that, people naturally lean towards you, trust you, and respect you. So stop gossiping, stop criticizing, stop using your words as weapons against others. Instead, let your words become tools of healing, seeds of encouragement, and symbols of maturity. Because respect is not earned by how sharp your tongue is in tearing others down. It is earned by how disciplined your tongue is in building others up. And when people see that your voice brings peace instead of poison, they will not only respect you, they will seek your presence, because your presence becomes a place where dignity lives. Eliminate excuses, because excuses are the silent killers of growth, the invisible walls that keep you small, and the very habits that rob you of respect. Every time you give an excuse, you are essentially telling the world that your circumstances are stronger than your will, that your obstacles are greater than your determination, that your comfort is more important than your destiny. Excuses sound convincing when you speak them. They may even soothe your conscience for a moment, but they never move you forward, they never earn you respect, and they never produce results. People respect results, not reasons. They admire those who rise above setbacks, not those who explain why they couldn't try. Think about it. When someone consistently makes excuses, you begin to lose faith in them. They might have talent, they might have opportunity, but if they are always justifying their inaction, you cannot rely on them. And reliability is the heartbeat of respect. Excuses do more than damage your progress, they damage the way people perceive your character. A person full of excuses becomes a person nobody can trust because excuses reveal an unwillingness to take responsibility. And where there is no responsibility, there can never be true respect. Excuses also keep you trapped in cycles of mediocrity. You convince yourself that tomorrow will be better, that the timing is not right, that the conditions are too hard, that someone else is to blame. But every time you do, you delay the life God has already prepared for you. Excuses create spiritual blindness. They keep you from seeing the opportunities God has placed before you. They keep you tied to culture, to fear, to laziness, while God is calling you to rise higher. And when you choose excuses over action, you choose stagnation over growth, weakness over strength, comfort over calling. Respect begins to flow when you step into accountability, when you stop explaining away your failures and instead own them, when you stop blaming others and instead say, I take responsibility and I will change. That posture commands respect because it shows maturity. It shows that you are not afraid of growth, not afraid of the work required, not afraid to stand in the light of truth. People respect those who don't just talk about what went wrong, but actually rise to fix it. They respect the one who refuses to let obstacles define them and instead uses obstacles as stepping stones. Even in the smallest areas, excuses chip away at respect. When you are late and say, traffic was bad, instead of admitting you didn't manage your time well, you lose credibility. When you miss a deadline and say, I was too busy, instead of admitting you didn't prioritize, you reveal a lack of discipline. People may accept your excuses once, maybe twice, but eventually they recognize the pattern and the respect begins to disappear. But when you eliminate excuses, you shift your energy. You begin to see solutions instead of problems, opportunities instead of obstacles, growth instead of limitation. You stop waiting for conditions to be perfect and start moving with what you have, and people notice. They admire the one who shows up despite difficulties, who delivers despite challenges, who honors their word even when it costs them. That is the kind of person who attracts respect, because respect always follows consistency, courage, and accountability. God cannot bless excuses. He blesses faith, He blesses action, He blesses responsibility. And when you align yourself with that truth, you not only earn respect from people, you also step into greater favor with Him. Excuses are heavy, they weigh you down, they slow your progress, they weaken your voice. But when you let them go, you walk lighter, you move faster, and you inspire others to rise higher. So eliminate excuses from your life. Replace them with ownership. Replace them with action. Replace them with faith, because excuses might protect your ego for a moment, but accountability will protect your character for a lifetime. And it is character, not excuses, that commands true and lasting respect. Stop comparing yourself to others, because comparison is the thief of joy, the destroyer of peace, and the silent enemy of respect. The moment you look at someone else's life, their success, their beauty, their possessions, and measure your worth against them, you have already diminished your own value in your own eyes. Comparison whispers that you are not enough, that what you have is too little, that who you are is too small. And the danger is not only that you start believing those lies, but that others can sense the insecurity that comparison breeds. Respect does not flow to the insecure heart, because insecurity makes you compete instead of create. It makes you jealous instead of generous. It makes you bitter instead of better. When you constantly compare yourself to others, you are declaring that you do not trust the unique design God placed within you. You are essentially saying that His plan for your life is inferior to His plan for someone else. But God never made you to be a copy. He created you to be an original. He gave you gifts, talents, a purpose, and a path that no one else can walk. Respect begins to flow when you honor that uniqueness, when you stop measuring your progress against the timeline of others, and when you embrace the truth that your worth is not based on competition but on creation. Comparison robs you of authenticity. Instead of living from your true self, you begin to mimic, imitate, and perform to look like someone else. And while you may gain temporary attention, you will not gain lasting respect. People can sense when you are not being real. They admire confidence, not imitation. They are drawn to authenticity, not performance. When you shed the habit of comparison, you step into your true power, the ability to be unapologetically yourself. And when you do, people cannot help but respect the courage it takes to live authentically in a world that constantly pressures you to conform. The truth is, respect does not go to the one who has the most, the best, or the loudest. It goes to the one who is secure in who they are. A person at peace with themselves radiates a strength that comparison can never imitate. Imagine someone who walks into a room not trying to outshine anyone, not trying to prove anything, not competing for attention, but simply standing in quiet confidence. That presence is magnetic. That energy is what draws people in and earns their admiration. Comparison also blinds you to gratitude. When your eyes are fixed on what others have, you fail to see the blessings in your own hands. You begin to complain about your portion instead of celebrating it. And ungratefulness pushes respect away because no one admires someone who constantly diminishes what they already possess. Gratitude, on the other hand, multiplies respect. When you are thankful for who you are and what you have, you exude contentment, and contentment is deeply attractive. It shows strength, maturity, and wisdom. Spiritually, comparison disconnects you from God's timing. It makes you rush when He wants you to wait. It makes you doubt when He wants you to trust. It makes you resent when He wants you to rest. But when you stop comparing, you begin to align with His perfect plan. You start walking your journey without pressure, without envy, without fear of missing out, because you understand that no one can take what God has written for you. That security commands respect because it shows that you are not swayed by the noise of the world, but anchored in the promises of God. So release comparison. Celebrate others without diminishing yourself. Honor their success while honoring your own journey. Instead of asking, why don't I have what they have? Ask, how can I maximize what God has given me? Because the truth is, people will not respect you for trying to be someone else. They will respect you for having the courage to fully be yourself. Respect follows authenticity, gratitude, and confidence, and these qualities only bloom when you stop looking sideways and start looking upward. The moment you stop comparing, you free yourself. You free your mind from jealousy, your heart from bitterness, and your spirit from restlessness. And in that freedom, you not only find peace, you also find respect, because nothing is more powerful, more admirable, and more magnetic than a person who is secure in who they are and confident in the God who made them. Remove arrogance, because arrogance is one of the fastest ways to destroy respect. It is a mask of strength that hides deep insecurity. Arrogance says, I am better than you. But respect is never born from superiority. It is born from humility. People may be intimidated by arrogance, they may even fear it, but they will never truly respect it. Arrogance demands honor, but true honor can never be demanded. It must be earned. And the tragedy of arrogance is that the more it tries to elevate itself, the more it pushes people away, because no one wants to be around someone who constantly diminishes others. Arrogance often disguises itself as confidence, but the two are not the same. Confidence is knowing who you are. Arrogance is thinking you are more important than others. Confidence is rooted in self-assurance and security. Arrogance is rooted in pride and insecurity. Confidence invites people in. Arrogance pushes people out. Confidence says, I am grateful for what I have and I know my worth, while arrogance says, what I have makes me better than you. The world respects confidence but despises arrogance, because arrogance breeds resentment, division, and isolation. When you carry arrogance, you create invisible walls between yourself and others. You may achieve success, you may climb high positions, but you will be standing on a mountain alone. People may follow you because they have to, but not because they want to. They may listen to you out of obligation, but not out of admiration. Respect is lost the moment people sense you value yourself more than you value them. And without respect, influence becomes shallow, relationships become fragile, and leadership becomes hollow. Arrogance blinds you to your own flaws. It convinces you that you do not need to learn, that you do not need correction, that you do not need growth. But the moment you stop learning, you stop leading. The moment you stop being teachable, you stop being admirable. Respect is given to those who are willing to admit mistakes, who are willing to learn from others regardless of their position, who are humble enough to say, I don't know it all. People respect humility because humility is real, humility is relatable, humility shows strength that arrogance will never have. Spiritually, arrogance disconnects you from God. The scriptures remind us that God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. Arrogance pushes away divine favor because it attempts to take credit for what only God has given. Arrogance says, I did this by myself, forgetting that every breath, every opportunity, every gift is from Him. But humility acknowledges the source. Humility says, without God, I am nothing, and everything I have is by His grace. And when you walk in humility, not only do people respect you, but heaven honors you because humility is the posture of greatness. Think of the people you deeply respect in your own life. Chances are they are not arrogant. They may be accomplished, they may be gifted, they may be powerful, but what makes them truly admirable is their humility. The way they treat others with dignity, the way they listen instead of boasting, the way they give credit instead of stealing it, the way they use their strength to lift others instead of standing on others to appear taller. That is the kind of character that earns respect because respect flows towards those who honor others. Arrogance is loud, but humility is powerful. Arrogance seeks attention, but humility commands admiration. Arrogance boasts about achievements, but humility lets the fruit speak for itself. People will forget the titles you carry, but they will never forget the way you made them feel. And arrogance always makes people feel small, while humility always makes people feel seen, valued, and important. That is why humility draws lasting respect, while arrogance repels it. So remove arrogance from your life. Stop thinking you are above correction. Stop treating people as though they are beneath you. Stop demanding honor instead of earning it. Choose humility instead, because humility is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the recognition that no matter how high you rise, you are still human, you are still dependent on God, you are still connected to others. And the moment you live from that truth, you gain something arrogance can never buy genuine respect that lasts. Stop neglecting growth, because the moment you stop growing, you stop inspiring. The truth is, respect is not just given to people who reach a certain level of success, but to those who keep moving forward, those who refuse to remain stagnant, those who live with a hunger to evolve into better versions of themselves. Growth is the fuel of respect because people naturally admire progress. They look up to those who refuse to stay where they are, those who take every season of life as an opportunity to learn, to stretch, and to rise higher. When you neglect growth, when you become comfortable, when you settle into mediocrity, you silently send the message that you no longer value excellence. And the world rarely respects complacency. Neglecting growth is dangerous because it creates invisible decay. You may look fine on the outside, but inside your potential is dying, your influence begins to fade, your relevance weakens, your strength diminishes. People start to notice that you are no longer sharp, no longer expanding, no longer contributing at the level you once did. Respect cannot stay alive where growth has died. When you stop growing, you not only rob yourself of future opportunities, you also rob others of the inspiration they might have drawn from your journey. Growth does not happen by accident. It requires intention. It requires you to read when you would rather scroll, to learn when you would rather relax, to discipline yourself when you would rather give in to comfort. Growth demands sacrifice, but that sacrifice pays back in respect because people admire discipline. They admire resilience. They admire the one who chooses long-term development over short-term ease. Neglecting growth, on the other hand, makes you blend in with the crowd, but true respect is always given to those who stand out, those who rise above average by choosing to keep climbing even when others have stopped. Spiritually, neglecting growth is equally dangerous. God did not create you to remain the same year after year. He calls you from glory to glory, from strength to strength, from faith to faith. When you neglect growth, you dishonor the potential He placed within you. You bury the talents He entrusted to you instead of multiplying them. And just as people lose respect for someone who wastes their abilities, heaven also takes notice when potential is neglected. But when you grow, when you stretch, when you develop, when you strive to become the fullest version of what God created, you not only gain respect from people, you also walk in alignment with divine purpose. Consider those you admire most. Chances are you respect them not only for who they are, but for how far they have come. You respect the struggles they overcame, the wisdom they gained, the perseverance they demonstrated. Growth is magnetic because it proves that a person is alive, moving, and becoming. Neglect, on the other hand, shows weakness. It reveals fear, laziness, or indifference, and no one respects wasted potential. The world is constantly changing, and if you do not grow, you will be left behind. Your influence will shrink, your voice will lose power, and your presence will no longer carry weight. Respect is dynamic, it grows when you grow, and it diminishes when you stop. That is why you cannot afford to neglect growth. You must seek it daily in your mind, in your spirit, in your skills, in your relationships. Because every small step of growth adds layers to your character, and character is the foundation of respect. So refuse to be stagnant. Refuse to let a year pass where you are the same person you were before. Refuse to neglect the opportunities God gives you to expand, to learn, to deepen, to rise. Growth is not about perfection, it is about direction. It is about being further today than you were yesterday. And when people see that in you, when they see that you are a person who keeps developing, who keeps pressing forward, who keeps elevating, their respect for you deepens. Because respect is not earned in stillness, it is earned in motion. And when you choose growth, you choose to live in a way that commands honor, not just today, but for a lifetime. Cut out broken commitments, because nothing erodes respect more quickly than a person whose words and actions do not align. Every time you give your word and fail to keep it, every time you make a promise you do not fulfill, every time you commit to something and then walk away casually, you weaken the foundation of trust others have in you. And trust is the very soil from which respect grows. Once people begin to doubt your reliability, their respect for you begins to fade, no matter how talented, gifted, or charismatic you may be. Broken commitments are not small. They silently shout that your integrity cannot be relied upon. When you break a commitment, you may think it only affects that moment of that promise, but in reality, it speaks volumes about your character. It tells people that your comfort is more important than your word, that your convenience outweighs your integrity. People may smile at you, they may even forgive you, but deep down they no longer view you the same. The sharpness of your influence dulls because consistency is what sharpens credibility. If people cannot trust you with small commitments, they will not entrust you with greater responsibilities. Respect always flows towards the reliable. Even God places great weight on commitments. Scripture reminds us to let our yes be yes and our no be no. Anything beyond that creates confusion and weakens integrity. When you speak, heaven records it, and so do people. Your commitments are not just casual words, they are promises that shape your reputation. A broken commitment may not seem like much in the moment, canceling a meeting, not showing up on time, abandoning a task halfway, but each one leaves a crack in your credibility. And over time, those cracks add up until respect shatters completely. On the other hand, when you honor your commitments, even when it costs you, even when it is inconvenient, even when no one else would notice if you didn't, you earn a level of respect that money, power, or talent can never buy. People deeply admire those who do what they say they will do. They respect those who show up when they said they would, who finish what they started, who deliver on promises, not because it was easy, but because it was right. That kind of consistency builds trust, and trust is the currency of influence. Broken commitments also damage the way you see yourself. Every time you break your own word, you silently teach yourself that your promises do not matter. You weaken your self-discipline, your confidence, and your sense of integrity. But when you keep your commitments, even to yourself, you strengthen your identity. You begin to trust yourself more, which makes you walk with greater confidence, and that confidence radiates outward, commanding respect. Think of the people you admire most. Often, what makes them stand out is not just their skill or talent, but their dependability. They do what they say, they honor their word, they follow through. That simple quality separates them from the majority because In a world full of broken promises, someone who keeps their commitments shines brightly. Respect naturally flows to them because reliability is rare and rarity is always valued. Spiritually, keeping commitments aligns you with God's nature. God never breaks his promises. His faithfulness is the reason we can trust him fully. And when you reflect that same faithfulness in your own life, you carry a piece of his nature. People may not be able to explain it, but they feel it. They sense that you are steady, grounded, trustworthy. That is the kind of character that earns deep and lasting respect. So cut out broken commitments from your life. Stop making promises lightly. Stop giving your word casually. Stop treating commitments as if they are optional. If you say yes, mean it. If you say no, stand by it. Let your actions and your words be one. Because people may forget your achievements, they may forget your possessions, but they will never forget whether or not they could trust you. And respect, once lost through broken commitments, is very difficult to restore. Protect your integrity by keeping your word, and in return, you will gain the kind of respect that no position or title could ever secure. Stop placing culture above God, because the moment you elevate traditions, customs, or the expectations of society higher than the truth of God, you weaken not only your spiritual foundation, but also the respect people have for you. Culture is temporary. It changes with generations, it bends with trends, it shifts with opinions. But God is eternal. His truth does not change, his standards do not bend, his word does not adjust itself to fit what society wants. When you live in a way where culture dictates your values, you will always be unstable, always shifting, always trying to keep up with what others say is important. And instability never commands respect. People respect those who are anchored, those who do not change their convictions with the wind, those who have a higher standard that cannot be bought, pressured, or manipulated. Culture will often tell you what is popular, but God tells you what is right, and the world respects righteousness far more than popularity. The reason is simple: popularity fades, but righteousness remains. When you make decisions only to fit in with culture, you may gain applause for a season, but when that season changes, the same people who praised you will turn their backs. Respect is not built on trends, it is built on truth. And truth is unchanging. When you place culture above God, you create a divided life. You act one way in church and another way in society. You compromise your faith to protect your image. You silence your convictions to avoid offending others. And while you may think this makes you more accepted, it actually makes you less respected. People can sense when you are living a double life. They can feel when your beliefs are negotiable. They may go along with you, but they will never admire you deeply. True respect is earned by consistency, by being the same person in private, in public, in the workplace, in the family, and in the house of God. That kind of consistency is impossible when culture is your guide, but it is natural when God is your anchor. Culture also pressures you to place traditions above truth. Families, communities, and societies often hold on to customs that may not align with God's principles. And while honoring culture is not wrong, it becomes dangerous when it replaces obedience to God. When you follow traditions blindly just because this is how it has always been, you risk ignoring what God is trying to do newly in your life. Respect does not go to the one who blindly follows the crowd. It goes to the one who has the courage to stand apart, to honor God even when it goes against culture, to value eternal principles above temporary practices. History shows us that the people who are most respected are often the ones who challenged culture with truth. Prophets, reformers, leaders, and visionaries who refused to bow to cultural pressure, but instead stood firmly for God's values. They were not always liked in their time, but they were respected, and their influence has lasted long after the culture of their day disappeared. Respect flows toward those who choose conviction over convenience, obedience over approval, and faith over fear. Spiritually, placing culture above God is a form of idolatry. It is saying that human approval means more to you than divine approval. It is choosing the voice of society over the voice of the Spirit. And while culture may give you temporary acceptance, only God can give you lasting significance. Respect follows those who honor the highest authority, not those who bow to every opinion. When people see that you live by God's standards, even if they disagree with you, they will respect you. They may not share your faith, they may not believe as you do, but they will admire your strength, your consistency, and your courage. There is something deeply powerful about a person who is not swayed by the crowd but stands tall in their convictions. That person becomes a reference point of integrity, a pillar others look to when the shifting winds of culture confuse them. So stop placing culture above God. Stop letting trends dictate your values. Stop letting family pressure or societal customs control your faith. Honor culture where it aligns with truth, but never elevate it above the Word of God. Because at the end of the day, cultures fade, traditions pass, societies evolve, but God remains. And those who choose Him above everything else gain not only eternal reward, but also the kind of respect that no cultural approval could ever provide. Remove the fear of judgment, because as long as you are imprisoned by what people think of you, you will never rise to the level of respect you were created for. Fear of judgment is one of the greatest chains holding people back from living in authenticity, from standing in truth, and from fulfilling their God-given calling. When you live in constant worry about who will approve or disapprove, who will like or dislike, who will clap or criticize, you begin to live a smaller version of yourself. You shrink your voice, you compromise your values, you bend your convictions, all because of the imagined weight of other people's opinions. But here is the truth: people's opinions are fragile, temporary, and inconsistent, and if you build your life on them, your foundation will always be unstable. Respect is not given to the one who pleases everyone, it is given to the one who dares to stand firm even when everyone is watching. The paradox of life is that the more you chase people's approval, the less they actually respect you. Why? Because people admire courage, not compliance. They respect authenticity, not imitation. They honor those who are unapologetically themselves, not those who mold themselves into whatever the crowd demands. If you silence your truth just to avoid judgment, you may gain temporary acceptance, but deep down, people sense that you lack backbone. They may tolerate you, but they will not respect you. Even spiritually, the fear of judgment is a thief. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. When you are governed by fear, you are saying in essence that man's voice is louder than God's, that human criticism matters more than divine calling. And the more you fear judgment, the more paralyzed you become. You hesitate to step into opportunities, you delay acting on your convictions, you hide your gifts and silence your message, all because of what someone might say. But here is the reality: people will judge you no matter what you do. If you succeed, they will talk. If you fail, they will talk. If you stay quiet, they will still talk. So why surrender your peace to the noise of voices that change like the wind? Look through history and scripture. Every person who made a difference faced judgment. Moses was judged, David was judged, Jesus himself was judged harshly, criticized, and condemned. And yet their respect came not from bowing to opinion, but from fulfilling their purpose regardless of it. If you want to live respected, you must learn to live free from the grip of judgment. That does not mean being arrogant or dismissive, but it means being anchored so deeply in who you are in God that no amount of human criticism can uproot you. Fear of judgment also creates a life of comparison. You begin to measure yourself against others, what they have, what they do, how they live, and in doing so, you belittle your own uniqueness. Respect, however, is not earned by being a copy. It is earned by being original. The world respects those who walk their own path with boldness, who embrace their own identity with confidence, who show up fully as themselves without apology. Your uniqueness is your gift, but if you bury it under fear, you rob not only yourself, but the world of the influence you were meant to have. There is also a subtle irony in fearing judgment often. The very people you are afraid of are themselves too consumed with their own insecurities to even notice you deeply. You are living small because of a spotlight that does not even exist. People think less about you than you imagine because most are too busy worrying about how they themselves are being judged. So why live as a prisoner of an illusion? Why give power to shadows that have no real authority? When you remove the fear of judgment, you walk lighter. You speak with greater clarity. You act with stronger conviction. You stand taller, not because everyone agrees with you, but because you are no longer enslaved to their opinions. And people will notice. They may not always agree, but they will respect you because courage is magnetic. Authenticity is powerful. Confidence rooted in God's approval is unshakable. Respect flows toward the fearless, not because they are perfect, but because they are real. And when you strip away the fear of judgment, you discover a freedom that commands respect without even trying. People admire those who are unafraid to stand alone if necessary, those who are willing to endure criticism to live in alignment with their truth, those who know that ultimately the only judgment that truly matters is God's. So remove the fear of judgment from your life. Stop letting the whispers of others silence your voice. Stop letting their opinions chain your destiny. Stop living small because you are afraid to stand tall. Because at the end of it all, no one's opinion can save you, no one's applause can fulfill you, and no one's criticism can destroy you unless you allow it. Only God's voice defines your worth. And when you live in that reality, when you choose His approval above all else, you rise above judgment, and in doing so, you gain the deepest form of respect this world can give,